Hello, this is the first video to Chapter 9, Section 1, Part 1. In Chapter 9, we will be doing the hypothesis test. It gets pretty challenging. On the first page here, we have an outline and objectives of the entire chapter. But today, we are going to start out with just Section 9.1 and how to make a claim for the hypothesis test. We call it a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. Now let's just stop briefly. Oftentimes claims are made, whether they're by companies, whether it's by pharmaceuticals, whether it's by the government. Some type of claim is made. We as statisticians need to test to see if these claims are possibly true or false. So we start out with hypotheses. We have a null hypothesis. We have an alternative hypothesis. The null always has an equal sign. That means it can also have a greater than or equal to, or it can have a less than or equal to. Now the alternative hypothesis is always the exact opposite of the null hypothesis. Okay, this is tricky at first. Hang in there. The alternative hypothesis never has an equal sign. So the alternative could have a not equal, a greater than, or a less than sign. Let's try to make this clear by doing a few examples. Let's take a look here at example 1, letter A. A medical trial is conducted to test whether or not a new medicine reduces cholesterol by 25%. So we are given a percentage of 25% here. I'm going to write that as a decimal. Since we have the equal sign, we know that the null hypothesis always has to have the equal sign. Now let's write the alternative hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis is always the exact opposite. So we're going to write that the percentage or the proportion will not equal 0.25. Let's move on to letter B. We want to test the mean height of 8th graders and see if it is 66 inches. Now notice here we don't say percentage, we say mean. So we're not going to do the letter P here. We are going to use the letter mu, the Greek letter mu for mean. Since we have an equal sign here again, our claim is actually going to be the null hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis is always the opposite. So we're going to say not equal to 66. All right, now we're going to change it up just a little bit. Letter C, we want to test if it takes fewer than 45 minutes to teach a lesson plan. So we want to see if the average lesson plan takes less than 45 minutes. So notice how I set this up here. A lot of students will think that this claim is the null, but it is not. There is no equal sign in this claim. So that means the alternative hypothesis is the mean is less than 45 minutes. The null will always be the exact opposite. And how do we write the exact opposite of less than? It would be greater than or equal to 45. Pause the video if you need to get a better understanding of this. Let's keep going to the last one, which says letter A, but it should say letter D here. On a state driver's test, about 40% pass on the first try. We want to test if more than 40% pass. Now they gave a percentage here again, a proportion. So we're not going to use the mean. We are going to use the proportion is greater than 40% and write that as a decimal. Now, of course, there is no equal sign here. So what does that mean? That means that the alternative hypothesis is our claim. The null hypothesis will be the exact opposite. And this is how we set up our alternative and null hypothesis at the very beginning of the hypothesis tests. In the next video, you are going to learn how we make a decision, whether we're going to reject the null hypothesis or if we do not reject the null hypothesis. I hope this video helped.